So if you look at that very top page of the warm-up questions, where it just says warm-up questions at the top, the little half sheets should be at the back. Don't worry about those for the moment. But that top sheet, it has questions 1 through 5 there. You'll recognize them. You've heard those a couple times from me now. At least for quite a long time, whenever you start out, you'll pray, and then you'll ask these warm-up questions. So you can see there's numbers 1 through 5 there. The optional box below that, I would skip, but it's good for you to know that it's there. Those other questions are kind of more relevant if you're working with an adult or high school students, and you probably wouldn't ask them every time, but it's kind of just some information there that you can help them learn. I did a little bit of it with you today, so just take a look at that top page. Don't worry about what's after that for the moment, just so you're familiar with what's there. All right, so you know that I asked you those top 5 questions there, but then I also asked more questions. If you turn and look at page 2, you'll see questions 6 through 10.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's optional ones on that page too, but you can skip those. If you have this, it's very easy to prep without even having the activities in front of you. The warm-up questions basically, and the stuff behind it, has everything you need. And just look at the way that's set up. For basically, you just really need to ask whatever's right beside 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But as you can see, for example, what are the 2 sounds that A makes? If that one is hard, then you can ask, what are the 2 pictures that you use to help you remember that? Basically, what you're always aiming for throughout this whole entire thing is that students answer accurately the first time. So what you are trying to do as the teacher is set him up step by step by step by step so that when he answers, he's accurate. Does that make sense? You start out with easy enough questions like, what is this a picture of? And he can answer. And then you gradually help him do it without the picture in front of him. And then he doesn't even need the pictures. But you're always aiming for accuracy. Even if it takes time, even if it means you have to ask more questions and you have to go through more gradually and you have to give him time. Do not ever worry about time. That's... Actually, well, Lisa, you've definitely experienced that in the classroom. Mary, you probably experienced that early on in special ed where there's always so much pressure. And actually, if you've done any working right in classrooms already, Ave Maria students, then you've seen teachers are under so much pressure to make progress and get through. But that really does damage a lot of the time. So the more that you can just calmly, patiently, when you really understand where you're going, then you don't have to worry so much about sticking with any timeline because you understand that the student is progressing from one step to the next. And as long as they're making progress, things are good, even if it's slow. So then would you turn to page 3? This is something I didn't sing for you, but it can be very helpful. And it's hard for me to be the same sort of goofy person that I am in front of a middle school class, in front of you guys. But that works very well for middle schoolers, and if you can pull off enjoying this, then it actually works great, even at a high school level, to help people remember the sounds. So if it's torture for you and it just makes you embarrassed and makes the whole class uncomfortable, then skip it. But if you can sing this song in a fun way for them, then even though you just have to make it not feel undignified for high school kids, but if you're goofy enough, it's perfectly fine, and it just helps them remember. It's to the tune of Where's Thumbkin, which is the same as Are You Sleeping and Frere Jacques. And I don't have a good voice, but this is the one song I've sung a million times in front of people, and I don't really care anymore. And I've gotten better at singing it as I've gone. It actually sounds sort of decent sometimes. It might not today, but I'll just do the very first verse so you can hear it. So it's A makes 2 sounds, A makes 2 sounds, A and A and A. A like in angel, A like in apple, A and A and A. So you can get the idea. There's one little asterisk there, and if you see the note at the bottom, when I was singing this, I said A like in angel, A like in apple. So I didn't mess with the words angel and apple. They didn't become angel and apple. Does that make sense? I realized early on so I learned this from somebody else who was using it, and it was sort of effective, but she was using it with first graders, and a lot of them were saying that the sounds that A makes were A and ah, like dragging it out with a little bump in the middle. And that's not very helpful when you're trying to sound something out. So to just keep it clear, angel and apple, not angel and apple. Does that make sense? If the point of this is for them to be able to sound something out later, so we don't want them to be doing k-a-a-at. That's harder than k-at. All right, it might seem obvious, but it was painful to watch the kids try that. So, all right, page 4. Those questions 11 through 15 are all about the syllables. I asked you these. What are those parts of words? Syllables. How many kinds of syllables are there? Actually, I think I just skipped a house. I didn't ask you how many kinds. That's okay. Either one. 6 is a correct answer. 7 can also be a correct answer if you count the attic. It doesn't matter which one you do. And kids tend to develop a strong opinion. They either want schwa to be counted or they don't want schwa to be counted. And it's hilarious. I don't know why. Number 13 there, it's just that the syllable house. When you're doing this, don't leave the syllable house up in any room. Or like in your classroom, don't have it written there. What we want is for it to get into his memory. The way that works best is him seeing you draw it out each time. He sees you draw the rectangle, he sees you draw the line down the middle, the 2 vertical lines, the attic, and then you fill in the words while he tries to say them. He could also be the one drawing it, but usually just for time I do draw it myself. But he could draw it if he really wants to. And then you help him. If he can't fill in those words, there's little hints on the warm-up sheet there. So just like I did for you, if he can't remember open, you draw a little open door. And so on. So just read through that 13 there on your paper for a second. Do you understand that little note at the bottom in parentheses? So those little red symbols you don't have to include until they've actually been taught them. Don't include anything that's just going to be purely confusing. And then we'll get on to questions 14 and 15 soon. So you could see that, we're at the bottom of page 4. That makes it seem like a lot. But when I asked you those warm-up questions, it took about a minute. We just went through it quickly. So even though this seems like 4 long pages, at the beginning of each lesson and for a while, ask these questions every time when you start.